Hello and welcome to another episode of the CIRS Group podcast. I am Barbara.
And I'm JC.
And today we just got back from CIRSx 2024. Like literally 2 nights ago, we both just got back to our respective homes, and that is what we're going to talk about today. We're very excited to give just a general recap, just a quick our hot takes and how it all went for us. JC, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, we will be following up with specific episodes for the actual talks. So we'll be going over, we kind of categorized it as remediation talks, kind of more of the medical side talks, and then also more patient-facing talks. There are a few in there that were like, all the talks were good, but there are a few in there that were like stellar. So we're really excited to come out with those episodes, but we wanted to have a really quick turnaround time on this one and just give you guys our overall impressions of how everything went.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we continue to not be medical professionals, and none of this should be taken as medical advice, although we're not going to be talking a whole lot about that stuff today anyway. First, the first aspect, and this is like maybe the hardest part of these kinds of conferences, especially something for you guys to keep in mind if you ever want to attend a future CIRSx conference, is the travel and like how potentially hard that can be on you mentally, physically, emotionally, even all of the things. So JC, tell us how your trip went on getting there.
Well, I was supposed to fly out on Thursday, and in the morning my flight was delayed and then eventually canceled. I booked for a later flight, stayed at the airport for 11 hours, and then that flight was canceled. I ended up flying out the next morning. So I missed half of the Friday sessions. I missed the morning sessions on Friday, which was really a bummer. But at the same time, there were apparently thunderstorms in Dallas, so I'm grateful that they didn't try and fly a plane and, tragedy happened. But I went through all of the emotional spectrum on Thursday.
But the hotel itself, we noticed it's tough. It's a little bit there were floors that were questionable. Specifically the third floor, which is where the proficiency partner training went. I was there at least 9 hours with very little like time away. I only went up to the room maybe once during that time, but
Sorry, I'm just thinking about what this must be like if this is the first ever CIRS episode someone is listening to,
I
and they
know.
probably think, did like are we talking about ghosts? Are we talking about creepy little twins? What's going on? Why was it questionable? But we're talking about water damage.
Thank you for clarifying. I completely forget that you never know how people are stumbling on this. But yes, water damagey, mildewy vibes, no overt smell. It's not something that your average person would walk in there and go, there's a problem. But of course, a lot of us with CIRS are extra sensitive. I didn't notice a problem until probably hour 6, 7, 8. I was there and I started getting very tired. It was very hard to listen to what people were saying. That was a little rough. And I just thought, oh, it's a lot of information. So I'm just tired. My executive functioning is just shutting down for the day. But it was apparently that floor, because the rest of the talks, the rest of the weekend, I really didn't have that effect. This is why, like, I would love it if everybody who knows about CIRS could come to CIRSx, because there's a lot of amazing information. It's so great to meet all the doctors in person, because I know some of us are dealing with telehealth, but you have to keep in mind that like the travel and the hotels, like we can only check them so much. And I say we, like I was a part of it. The people who do the conference can only check for, I mean, they picked out a relatively brand new hotel attached to an outdoor mall. Like they did as much as they could to make it as CIRS friendly as possible. And there were still problems.
And another questionable thing we experienced was flying out. The Dallas airport was so not okay. And it's multiple buildings were not okay. At least the main, entry point and then terminals A and B. But one thing you can do is like at the Denver airport, I was kind of joking about it, but the B terminal really does have an outside area you can get to. So you can like at least remove yourself from exposure for a period of time. But another thing I've done in the past is going to smoking areas, which sounds awful, but it's outside. Most of the smoking areas at airports are outside, or even if you could find like a dog relief area, oftentimes those are outside. So just like if you need to get out of that space for a moment and just give yourself some cleaner air, finding those kind of areas might be helpful.
It's sad to think that like an endotoxin soup of a dog relief area would be better than the indoor air of an airport, but absolutely.
Yeah, for the Dallas
Unfortunately.
airport, there was like visible mold in the bathroom. I was just like, I don't, what do you even do?
Yeah.
Smoking area. Barbara, you mentioned that you did the Proficiency Partner program, so we're very excited for that. Did you want to share anything about it?
Yeah, so I chose to do the Proficiency Partner in-person thing because I do best when I have to go to something and be there in person and listen. Like that helps my ADHD brain like focus in on the information. If I were to have just purchased the online course and done it at my own pace, probably would never have done it. Just that's my track record with buying courses. So, I mean, maybe eventually I would have been able to, but it's just, I was nice to just go there and knock it out. Now, is it too much information for the 8 hours you're there? Yes, absolutely. And so they go over, what were you going to
Sorry,
say?
just backing up a little bit. The Proficiency Partner Program, for those that don't know, it's offered by survivingmold.com, and it's a way to become familiar with the Shoemaker protocol in depth. And then the end goal of it would be like if you wanted to be a CIRS coach, it would equip you for that. If you wanted to do CIRS research or be involved in the CIRS community in some way, and you feel like having a better understanding of the Shoemaker protocol would help you to achieve that, that's what the Proficiency Partner course is for. If you're just a patient, it's going to be, and you just want to get through the protocol and, that's good. You don't want any more CIRS in your life. Totally not necessary to take, but it's an awesome course if you want to, work in this CIRS community to some extent.
Yes. Thank you for explaining that. I forget people might not know what the heck that is. So yeah, that I did go through the training on that. Um and now I guess what's left to do is to study and to take the test and then you eventually become a proficiency partner. I think we have a couple of those in the CIRS group already who are members and yeah, I'm it's kind of just to dot the I's and cross the T's a little bit for me and just get myself plugged into the CIRS doctor land a little bit more. But yeah, it was a good time. It was led by Dr. Dorninger and Dr. McMahon, and they're both really fun speakers. A lot of it turned into just Q&A time, and we got to ask a lot of really unique questions of the doctors themselves. I mean, these are probably the leading experts of the protocol outside of Dr. Shoemaker himself. So it was really nice to have that kind of access to them. And yeah, so it was a good time. But if you are not one to want to sit in a classroom type setting for 8 hours and just listen and take notes, you can definitely do this whole thing online and go through the process that way.
And that night it was the reception and they gave out awards. And I was so sad to miss this, but Christian Navarro-Torres, Dr. Christian Navarro-Torres, he's been on a couple of podcast episodes. He's a member of the CIRS group. He has his own CIRS community called CIRS Lab and an Instagram page as well. He won an award and we were so excited for him. So the
Yes.
award that he won was for CIRS advocacy, for spreading CIRS awareness. And it was kind of a multi-factor thing. Not only does he provide Spanish content, which is amazing, but also he's really involved in the CIRS community with the doctors, helping with research, helping to push that leading edge forward.
Yeah, I think I would never ever if I could wave a wand and remove CIRS from Christian, I absolutely would. Anyone who knows him would because he's such a wonderful person and doesn't deserve all the pain and suffering he's gone through with CIRS. However, if that was given to him by the powers that be to provide him with the deep empathy and understanding for what patients are going through, coupled with his brilliance and his PhD and his mind for research. Like he has ADHD like I do, but he enjoys data and research and digging through and finding the facts and presenting the truth. The fact that that is in one person is,
And he's bilingual. No,
and
he's
he's freaking
multilingual.
bilingual. Yeah, right. I know everyone, yeah, people who know one more language know like 8 more million. But he just has so many beautiful attributes to do so much good for the CIRS community. And we are all incredibly lucky to have him amongst us and to be able to learn from him. So obviously, we will have all of his links that you just mentioned in the show notes for you guys to check out. I'm sure anyone who knows our podcast knows him because we've had him on a few times. But yeah, that's yeah, just it was awesome to see that. And he was absolutely floored, shocked, was not expecting it. Like I saw the look on his face when Dr. D announced it. It was so well deserved and a beautiful moment. So I'm sorry you weren't there for it, but I think it was filmed and will be available. So we'll at least get to relive it at some point later.
Yeah, and if you were there and you filmed it, please send it to me. I want to see you so bad.
I know. I should have,
I
I
was
don't know
so sad to
why.
miss that.
I know. I wish I had known what, yeah, I didn't quite know. I knew he was going to get something that night, but I wasn't sure what point to start filming or else I totally would have. But yeah, it was a good moment for sure.
Another really beautiful moment was Dr. Ritchie Shoemaker himself was actually at CIRSx. He didn't go to the last CIRSx, so it was a really big deal for him to be at this one. And from all the points in his talk, it really felt like him passing the baton on to, the next generation of CIRS providers. So I think it was his last public CIRS talk. So it was really beautiful to be able to be there, and they honored him. We all got red shirts that say "publish" on the back because that was his mission, and it is his mission. It has been his mission for so long to get the research published for CIRS. Ming Dooley, in her talk, she shared that it takes 17 years for published papers to become accepted in medical practice, and we're hitting the 20-year mark with CIRS research, and they've published so many papers. So
Dozens.
hopefully this becomes mainstream in the next couple of years.
Watching Dr. Shoemaker look at basically what he did, like you could see it in his face when people were I'm gonna start crying when people were reflecting on how this all starts. CIRSx started in what, like a little boardroom of like 5 or 10 people or something like really small, and to have him up on stage looking out at 150 people now, all either saved because of him or saving others because of him. Yep. Really, yeah. So he definitely got a standing ovation more than once. And it was really nice to be there and to see that. And yeah, we owe a lot to him and very thankful for that moment.
Yeah, Barbara started crying, which made me start crying. Now Barbara's gonna cry. Oh, but he said in his presentation, it was what makes a CIRS provider, and he said we make the lame walk, the blind see, and the deaf hear. And I was lame, and I was blind. You can't. So it was just so beautiful to be a part of that, and I'm so grateful that I ended up being able to be there for that. I really didn't think you'd get me going.
I didn't think so either. I was like shocked as I was talking that I feel it creeping up, but it was just too, I think I spent so much time thinking he was such a hard ass that to see him like physically there walking up, um, and to be emotional, for him to be emotional about it, hit. That was it was a side of him I hadn't seen on YouTube. So it was good to see.
The other thing that was just so incredibly humbling in so many ways. And I'm going to try and I just took a minute to recover. I'm going to try not to cry again. Was the amount of people who came up to us and said, I listened to the CIRS group podcast, or I'm part of the CIRS group. I was not expecting that. Um, I was not expecting that. And it was so amazing to see that we're not shouting into the void, like I know that the work we do is good, and I know that we have listeners out there, hi listeners. But it was just so, so humbling to see all of the lives that we've impacted through our podcast and through our group. And that was just so beautiful and so amazing. And it's one thing to interact with people virtually, but to be able to physically hug those people was just, I loved that so much. We need to have a CIRS group meetup at some point because I need to hug every single one of you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I know there was talk of like future retreats and like obviously there's a lot to go into that, making sure the buildings are safe and all the stuff that you need, unless we all just want to bring our own tents, but it's not usually my style. If I can help it physically.
You're a clamper.
Yeah. But yeah, the meeting people that we knew quite a few people from the CIRS group were going to be there, so we were looking for them, and that was super exciting and awesome. And then to also, again, like you said, just have people we didn't have any knowledge of come up to us. And not only that, they were all really cool. Like it was so much fun. We had dinner with a couple of people during the week that we were there, and it was just really that was fun. It's fun. It's one thing to be like, oh, cool, like you listen and you got something out of it. Great. Like, oh, you're also an awesome person and we can like hang out and just chat about whatever. Like it's good. It was good stuff. Really good to basically make new friends and form new relationships and then strengthen the ones that we already had over the weekend. It's a little bit the conference is a little bit like a retreat in and of itself because we're all, fully immersed in CIRS land and sharing all the things that we could possibly share with each other in that brief moment. But it was, and learn from each other. So it was, yeah, it was a really good, enriching experience on every level.
And one of the coolest things I'm excited for as a takeaway from CIRSx is we were able, I basically went up to every human that I could that was there and asked if they would be on our podcast. And people were so, like, not only were they happy to be on our podcast, but very many of them were excited to be on our podcast, which is exciting for us and exciting, I hope, for you, our listeners. Um, can we highlight a couple of the ones we're really super excited about?
Yeah. I mean, I was so I think I've mentioned before on the podcast that I had worked with Michael Schrantz, who is an IEP, and I had hired him, paid full price. Like this is not, some kind of sponsored thing. Like I sought him out because I saw his last talk last year, and he's so knowledgeable and funny and like not like doesn't take things too seriously. He's able to joke. And so I hired him to like help me make a plan with my house and like what I needed to do to clean it up and remove myself from exposure. And so to then meet him, so I had done that consult a few months back, and then to see him again in person and like we met, and he was just instantly what I wanted to ask him on our podcast, but I was like weirdly nervous about it. And he was just JC. Thank God for JC, guys. She becomes the extrovert when mine goes away. I don't know what happens, but she was like, "Oh my God, we want you on on our podcast." He was like, "Oh my God, yeah, send me the email right now." So we're yeah, very excited to have Michael on very soon. And that'll be a really fun one. I already know.
I'm also really excited to have Dr. Peg DiTullio on the podcast. She is like the champion of tick-borne illness and Lyme. So a lot of people who are struggling in the protocol, step one is remove yourself from exposure. For a lot of people, that's just remediating their home. And I say just, not like that's a huge thing, having to relocate or remediate. But for some people, that's not enough. For some people, they have co-infections that have to be dealt with. And Dr. Peg is the go-to. She is the provider for difficult cases. So we're super excited to have her on to talk about that.
Yeah, that'll be great. And then a total random one that I'm also going to mention, although I don't, when this will come out, but we saw the most beautiful dog there at CIRSx, and we came to find out that that dog is a service dog for his owner, Amber, who trained him to detect mold. And like incredible. Like the dog actually figured out that the third floor was not great before any of us had like experienced it or told her or anything about that. So that's going to be an incredible one. She actually, her mission is to help other people train their dogs to detect mold. And I cannot wait for that because one of my dogs has a very good nose. So I'm pretty sure she could handle, and she's also very food motivated. So I feel like that's a good combination. So I'm excited for that one.
And if you want to check out Amber and Atlas, the absolutely beautiful dog that Barbara was referring to, you can find her on Instagram at the_mold_free_yogi. We'll leave that link in the
Yeah.
show notes.
Yeah. That'll be a really fun one for sure.
But yeah, CIRSx, guys, it was amazing. It's always so hard when we're talking about CIRSx because I know a lot of CIRS patients would want to go. And I just want to put this out there. I feel like this episode maybe created a lot of FOMO unless you listen to the travel part and you're like, oh, that sounds like a nightmare. No, thank you.
Right.
Um, but if you are at a point in your healing where it would be difficult for you to tolerate, I would tell you to wait a year. Just wait a year. Even Barbara and I, we both were commenting on how much better I'm going to use the word endured, like it was some sort of like awful thing we had to go through, but truly it is a physical feat to get through CIRSx if you are unwell. Last year, we both had a point of a little bit of mental breakdown where we were like, we just need some space. We need to be away from people. We need to get out of this situation. But this year, both of us, I think we endured it. We tolerated the environment a lot better, the actual physical environment of the building. So I think that really speaks to our healing. And I just wanted to put that out there in case you are a CIRS patient and you listen to this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to go. I just want to caution you a little bit on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you say physical, endurance, but mental endurance too. I
It was a
mean,
lot of lectures.
it's a lot of information. It's a lot of listening, taking notes, or however you're consuming it. But you only have so much cognitive function, even fully healthy. You only have so much. I mean, I think anyone who's been healthy at some point in their life remembers, some kind of thing, whether it's like, God, traffic school or something like that, where it's like kind of like a lot of info and you just have to sit there. Although thankfully, CIRS is a little bit more interesting than that. But yeah, I would just caution people to yeah, don't we're bringing you all the good stuff, as much good stuff as we can. The good stuff, thankfully, all of the practically every CIRS doctor tunes in or is there. So they are learning. And that's the important part. You want your doctors to be learning and your coaches and all of that. You want those people learning so that you can focus on getting well. And they are going to be the ones equipped to help you shepherd you towards health as well as they can. So that's really the point of CIRSx is the sharing of that new knowledge, the newest knowledge that we all have and are gathering, and for the benefit of the patient. So please don't feel bad if you couldn't tune in or you couldn't be there. Again, unless you are planning to actually coach or become a doctor and deal with CIRS yourself, which amazing if you are. If you are just being a patient, not just, but if you're being a patient and you're getting through the protocol and your main goal is a healthy, happy life, getting back to the normal you, um, then you didn't miss that much in it. And like I said, and like JC mentioned, we would love to organize some kind of meetup someday where it is you still get the fellowship and like the camaraderie and the connection in person, without maybe all the lectures and the questionable hotels.
And in the meantime, if you are looking for more resources and support and community in your CIRS journey, you can join us over at theCIRSgroup.com.
We'll see you there.